Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Life and Sports Spotlight with Cameron Knox. And as you know, you guys watch every week. We start off with college football, and the title of last week's episode was, the making of a boring week for college football. But what happened was nothing boring at all. Um, you know, there was a lot of upsets last week, a lot of close games, a lot of just stuff that made up for, not really it being a lot of, ranked matchups. As you may not know, um, Alabama, the number one team in the country, the week prior, beating Georgia, you know, so they lost to Vanderbilt. The number four team, Tennessee, loses to Arkansas. Um, the number nine team getting blown out against Texas A&M. Michigan losing the rematch of last year's national championship to Washington, and USC losing to Minnesota. Um, there was a few close calls in the top 10. Miami going, across the country to play a Cal team, losing the entire game. Not that I think they went up 7-0. Then, Cal put it on them after that. And then they eventually came back and won. We thought there was going to be a whole bunch of, um, live, we thought there was going to be more upsets, but Miami ended up pulling it out. So that brings us to this weekend, October 12th. I think when the college football, schedule came out, every football fan was looking forward to this weekend, October 12th. So many matchups, so many new rivalries, so many old rivalries, so many new SEC battles. So so we'll get into that. To start it off, 2-3, Ohio State at Oregon. They haven't played in a few years. Last time they played was at Ohio State, where Oregon goes on the road and upsets that Ohio State team. CJ Stroud, I believe, was one of his first games. I can't remember. But yeah, Oregon ultimately wins that game. But now they're both in the Big Ten, and this is the new rivalry that we all want to see. Ohio State being the number two team in the country and Oregon being number three. It's really going to come down to, two veteran quarterbacks and who's going to make the mistake. I know that's kind of really every football game, but they're both veterans. They've both been to, a couple colleges. Dylan Gabriel, this being his third school, and Will Howard, that's being his second. So it's going to come down to, I think right now, Dylan Gabriel has the advantage because, he went to Oklahoma. He's played, the Texas and the, whoever else. That I think is the only advantage. Obviously, yes, Will Howard went to Kansas State, also played in that same conference, the Big 12 last year, but it was just with not a big school, not the same type of caliber players that he has now. But I think Dylan, coming from Oklahoma, I think he just has the advantage. But I'm not gonna really say that matters because that Ohio State defense is really, really good. Oregon's has been up and down, really shaky. The best they've looked was this past game against Michigan State. So it really could go either way, and it will go either way. but I think it's going to be Oregon only because it's in uh, Oregon, at Austin Stadium, an environment that's very different from what, Ohio State can bring. Obviously there are a lot more fans in Ohio State, at the Michigan games, stuff like that. I think, but Oregon, this is a different type of feel for them coming up, but we'll see. Also, um, um, you know, USC or not USC, South Carolina, that is USC, but not the USC I call it. In Alabama, Alabama is coming off the loss that I mentioned to Vanderbilt, and they're at home now. I think this is going to be the perfect game for them to bounce back. South Carolina, very underrated SEC team. Um, but it's hard to go against Bama. You know, especially the way Kalen DeBoer, his record, it's very slim with losses, and he got punched in the mouth. I think he really just got outcoached. His players got outplayed just by a really and Vanderbilt had a chip on their shoulder, with Nick Saban talking about their school, saying like no one cares about Vanderbilt really in their environment. I think they just took it and ran with it, and that's bulletin board material for them. But I think Alabama bounces back. Yeah, and then number one Texas against number 18 Oklahoma. Quinn Ewers would be back. You know, Arch Manning has looked really good in the absence of Quinn. Um, I just, this game is a rivalry, so you can't really say, oh, Texas is going to win by however many points. I think Texas wins, but I can't give you a convincing win only because it's the rivalry. This is the game everyone loves every year because it's Texas Oklahoma. Um, this is the new rivalry I mentioned in the SEC. They've been Big 12 rivals for a long time. But this is a spark I think Oklahoma can put on themselves. New quarterback with a true freshman, Jackson Arnold not getting it done, so they put in the true freshman. It's gonna be nice. It's an atmosphere they're used to every year. So um, I think this could be the game that can turn their season around because they have big games going forward, obviously now in the SEC. But I think Texas wins, and I think depending on how the game goes, it could jump starts Oklahoma's season. Obviously, they're I don't think they're a playoff team this year because of them being new to the SEC and not really being on the standard of the Texas and Alabama and Georgia, Tennessee, Ole Miss. But you you're looking for the future in your quarterback, and if he has a good game against a really good Texas team, then that's how you solve that issue right there. Um, and then Penn State, USC, the real USC in Southern California. Um, Penn State coming off a big win um, against UCLA, UCLA team that really is just not the same, different team, not a threat to anyone. USC coming off the loss to Minnesota, like I previously mentioned. But you cannot sleep on USC. They're last week's pick away and a missed tackle away from really being undefeated. And being in the conversation with the Penn States and the Ohio State and Oregon. I don't think necessarily Michigan is in that top tier anymore. Don't get me wrong, they're still good, but I just don't think they're on that level. USC lost to them, but I still think USC is a better team. They just have to prove it. This is the perfect week to do so. Um, Excuse me, they're at home. They have, if their fans come out and really show that they really want to win this game, I think they could put their, you know, go down and score Penn State early, maybe get an early stop, obviously depending on who gets the ball first. Um, but if they put the pressure on Penn State, I think they can win this game. I really like USC. Um, just with the new everything that they have, new offensive, like ran offense by Miller Moss, obviously new defense. So I really like them. I think they could win. And I think they upset Purdue. I mean Penn State at home. Excuse me. And yeah, it really just depends on, like I said, um, how USC starts out the game. They typically, like, they start off slow against Wisconsin. They end up coming back and winning their last home game. They start off quick. I think it puts a lot of pressure on Penn State. So we'll see. Um, Cal Pitt, Pitt being an undefeated team. Cal put in, everything they had against the battle against Miami. Um, I really like the Cal team. They have a really good running back. They have really good running backs, I should say. Jaden Knott, Javian Thomas. They have really good running backs, but you can't rely so much on it. I think that's what kind of lost in the game because they don't have a pass game. I think they rely on the running game, screens to Ott and Thomas. But other than that, I really can't see them beating Pitt. It's at Pitt. Yeah, I think Miami just flatlined early, but they were able to pull themselves out the hole and win that game. But I got Pitt over Cal. Um, then we have Tennessee, Florida State, Florida. Tennessee, I think, just convincingly wins. Florida is a really up and down team. I think they've won 2 games now, one game, can't remember. But Tennessee, like they have bounce back. If they want to stay relevant in that football, college football playoffs race, to stay alive, you gotta beat the Florida team that doesn't really have an identity and that's struggling. So I got Tennessee. Ole Miss, LSU. This is two SEC teams that can get into that college football playoffs easily. Just being there and winning the matchups you're supposed to win. But this is, two teams that have already have losses now. LSU losing to USC and Ole Miss losing to Kentucky. So really, these are two teams that can't afford another loss. It's at LSU, but I think Ole Miss has the advantage because of the veteran leadership they have with Lane Kiffin and Jackson Dart and the Trey Harris. I think is questionable. Um, so I think that really depends on if they win or not. But I think Ole Miss, chip on the shoulder, lost 2 weeks ago. Um, I think they should get this win. Um, then Kansas State, Colorado, two teams that are Colorado hasn't lost in the Big 12 yet, not ranked yet, but this is a K State team that is ranked 18, but they have a loss. Colorado really, if they win this game, they're easily going to be ranked next week, um, because of this matchup. Dylan Edwards being at Colorado last year, now at Kansas State, game at Colorado. This is a perfect matchup. This is the perfect night game matchup that people are going to want to watch later tomorrow night, um, because of Travis Hunter, Heisman caliber player. He can win um, the Heisman. And then, the history of the Dylan Edwards situation, him transferring to Kansas State. You know, Dion has really proved a lot of people wrong this year. A lot of people thought, oh, they had no shot. I was one of those people. They have no shot. They were going to lose. After maybe that Colorado State, they may not get another win, maybe throw in a couple wins after that. But they really shocked the world. They beat Baylor, they beat UCF, and then I think they had a bye last week. So this is the biggest matchup that they're going to have this year so far. A Kansas State team, last time they went on the road, they got blown out at BYU. So this is going to be how they, you know, bounce back from that, away lost, and how Colorado continues to strive and show that they are a top team in the Big 12. So we'll see. I think Kansas State pulls it out. Colorado is going to have the fun. It's going to be the Travis Hunter show, offensively and defensively, because that's what he is. He's a easily top five pick in the NFL. But we'll see. But I got Kansas State. And then last matchup that I'm gonna speak on, Arizona at BYU. 2 weeks ago, we saw Arizona go to Utah, beat the number 10 team in the country at the time, Utah Utes. Arizona, they're a feisty team. They can win at any point because of their electric, star power of receivers and tight end that they have, and then sometimes they could fall flat on their face and not, be great. I think, they lost last week to Texas Tech. But BYU is coming off a bye, like I've mentioned. No, they're a surprise team. Them and Iowa State. I didn't mention Iowa State, but Iowa State has a big matchup as well to West Virginia. I won't get into it, but yeah, Arizona. I mean, BYU is is undefeated. They're the number 14 team in the country, um, and they know this team came into Utah already and beat the team that was 10. So they know they're gonna have a lot of pressure on themselves. But I think BYU wins. I really like their team. They're a really solid team. I have, ties there, kind of, sort of, if you know me personally. But I think BYU wins at Provo, big noon kickoff. Um, so that's going to be a big matchup for them this week. So we'll see. Um, yeah, college football, it's the most unpredictable thing in the world. Same with NFL, kind of, but you always kind of know who's gonna win some days, depending on injuries. But college football is really who can make the most, who can make the other team make the most mistakes. That's what makes college football so much better to than the NFL to so many other people because of the any given Saturday. They say any given Sunday as well, but any given Saturday, um, and you get out coached, and it's people that want to get to the next level in it to the NFL. So this is the perfect games this weekend to show. I know there's going to be scouts all over the world. You know, at these games, especially that game in Oregon at Oregon. Um, you know, but this is why we loved, real people that enjoy college football loved the conference realignment because like I mentioned, it creates the new rivalries and old rivalries, um maybe, some teams that haven't played in a while, like this Oregon and Ohio State matchup. We don't see it often. So it's good to maybe see it every every few years now because they're in the same conference. So we'll see. Gonna be a big weekend. Gonna love watching that. So now we get into the NFL. Um, as you all may have seen, may not have seen, Robert Saleh, the New York Jets head coach was fired. I want to say Tuesday or Wednesday, Tuesday. Um, really shocking news to me. Last week I had implied that Nathaniel Hackett, their offensive coordinator, was going to be fired. He did get demoted now that, they have their interim coach, um, their defensive coordinator becoming the interim coach. So Nathaniel Hackett does get demoted, but it's tough to see Robert Saleh get fired because of, kind of the situation he came into. Um, they draft Zach Wilson. It doesn't really pan out, because the Mike LaFleur offense, I guess, didn't work for him. The Daniel Hackett's offense didn't work for him. So, they ship him off to Denver. Um, we haven't seen him play because of the emergence of Bo Nix playing really well. So it's tough, but Nathaniel Hackett has stunted a lot of, young quarterbacks' growth. You know, you know, Zach Wilson and you know, not young, but Russell Wilson's. He was the head coach in Denver, and they didn't get along. Now they're both gone. Um, Sean Payton. I just think, with a lot of stuff Nathaniel Hackett was going through, he tried to always his job was, but I got Aaron Rodgers, like Aaron Rodgers on my side. So I think that's how he got the Denver job. He loses the Denver job, goes to the New York. I think the New York, him getting that job is what got Aaron Rodgers there to New York. Um, but now it's just like maybe it's just too much going on. Maybe Nathaniel Hackett isn't a coordinator. Maybe he's not a head coach. Maybe he's just a position coach. We know he won't be in New York next year. They'll have a new coach more than likely, depending on, it's week 6. So depending on what they do from here on out. Um, but I don't think he'll be in New York next year. So, but it sucks for Robert Saleh. He's dealt with so many different quarterbacks. I think they've had Joe Flacco, Aaron Rodgers, Zach Wilson, Mike White, uh, maybe Tyrod Taylor in that mix. I'm not sure, but they've dealt with a lot, and they were 2-3 when he gets fired at the time. So the owner said he had higher expectations for them at the time, so it was time for him to make a change. I think he was just waiting on anything really to make a move to get rid of Robert Saleh because he wasn't the one who hired him. But it sucks for Robert Saleh. I know he'll get back on his feet, maybe not with a head coaching job, but he's a really great defense coordinator. The Jets defense isn't the problem whatsoever. It's really just, offense. Aaron Rodgers has not played up to, Aaron Rodgers level, but he's coming off a torn Achilles and he's 40 years old. So that kind of sucked in the case. That's why I thought, Robert Saleh would have had a little more time to get through that issue. But hey, owners are the most impatient people because they want their team to be successful, just like the fans. So, they're putting their money into it, so they want their fans to be, happy for them. And I totally get it. But I think it was pretty um not fair to pull the plug so early, but it happens. Um then the Devontae Adams news, he's still a Las Vegas Raider, hasn't been traded yet. It's been rumors saying, maybe next week he'll be traded, or the Raiders aren't trading him. He talked with, Antonio Pierce and, he's happy, but at this point, who knows? They did make a quarterback change. Aiden O'Connell will start against the Steelers this weekend. Um, but who really? Um, I, I I don't think those two quarterbacks can make Devontae Adams the player that he has been. Anyways, so I'm still banking on him coming to Pittsburgh. Hopefully, we really need him. George Pickens has gone through a lot. This week has been, a lot for him. But who really cares? Really, I just hope he comes be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Um, the Jets, like with the move, that may not be an option for him anymore. Their car's out for multiple weeks. Spencer Rattler will start. That may not be an option for him anymore. So I think at this point it's either Steelers or he should stay in Vegas. Maybe try to work something out in the off season. Um, but all that stuff is kind of rumor based. You never really know until you know, and we'll see. So going into the pick'ems as we do weekly, I am a better record, way better record now. Um, Overall record 48-30. I went 10-4 last week. Um, so that's something I really been striving to do, get that record up. Um, and I think I've really done so. Um, but yeah, so last night was Thursday night football. I had the Niners beating the Seahawks. Seahawks tough loss to the Giants last week, and then the 49ers tough loss to the Cardinals. So two teams coming off two losses. Um, Seattle was 3-0. They've now lost three straight games. Niners having a really wobbly year. Um, they're now 3-3, I believe, 3-3. They're both 3-3. Niners now being the number one in that division. Um, so yeah, I had the Niners winning. Debo had a big game. Kittle had two touchdowns. Still not much of IU. Um, you know, I think as the season goes on, he'll get back into the game plan, and it's just tough for him. He was out all all camp, so he'll get going. I know defense had to force two Geno Smith interceptions. Nick Bosa, no, I don't think any sacks, but a ton of pressures to get Geno to throw that first interception and then just get Geno off his game, out of his rhythm. So that was big for the 49ers, big win. Then we got Bears and Jaguars in London. Another London game after, last week's, Jets loss, which ultimately got Robert Saleh fired. Vikings, big win for them. They're now going into their bye week. So Bears, Jags. I got the Bears winning. Jaguars really, coming off a big win against the Colts. The Colts, I predicted them to win. I think they needed that win, or Doug Peterson probably would have been fired. Um, but yeah, the Bears, I think they win a big game for them. Caleb Williams still hasn't really got going, hasn't really showed that he's the number one pick yet. But young career, young season. They're above 500, so that's all they can really ask for. Um, and then Tampa Bay versus the New Orleans Saints. Previously mentioned Spencer Rattler starting over Derek Carr because of injury. Um, Tampa Bay got to bounce back from that, Thursday night loss last week. Um, I think, just with the change and the newness of, a Spencer Rattler led offense, I think Tampa Bay wins. Um, it's in New Orleans, but I really like Tampa Bay. Mike Evans has really, he had a really great game. I think they'll get him the ball, get Chris Godwin the ball, get those guys the ball, and I think Rashad White won't play, so it'll be a Bucky Irvin, um, game running wise. Baker can, be a running threat as well, so that'll be a good game. But I got the Saint, Tampa Bay winning that one. Then we got Cardinals, Packers in Green Bay. Um, Jordan Love, a wonderful bounce back game. He didn't have he had a good mediocre game. He threw 4 touchdowns, but the 3 picks against the Vikings the week prior. Um, so it was a great bounce back win for him. And the Packers in LA. So they go home and face a Cardinals team that upset the 49ers. But, I think Jordan Love, they get Josh Jacobs going a little more, get him some more touches. Jaden Reed more touches. I'm not sure if Christian Watson's playing. Romeo Dobbs may be back, after last week's shenanigan. Um, but yeah, I think the Packers win. Um, then we got Colts, Titans in Tennessee. Colts still without Jonathan Taylor. Tennessee just not having a game, like an identity. They beat the Dolphins before the bye, but Will Levis will probably play. He was able to get that bye week to get his shoulder back, hopefully. But I think I got Tennessee. Shoot, I keep messing up. I'm so sorry, guys. Indianapolis. Big, big one. Titans are actually favorite, but Colts getting Anthony Richardson back. Michael Pittman Jr. is questionable. Same with Joshua Downs. But yeah, I think I still get Colts winning that game. Eagles Browns. Eagles easily. Get AJ Brown back. Get Devontae Smith back. Get Lane Johnson back. Browns have nothing to even talk about. Honestly, that team is bottom barrel of the league. So Eagles easily. Then the early game of the week, early game of the early window game of the week. Commanders Ravens. Both two hot teams. Ravens is really an up and down team. Commanders starting off hot, young team. I'm going Commanders. I don't want to, pull the plug on them yet. I know they're a really good team. Dan Quinn has that team going. Cliff has that calling the best plays he can. Um, Ravens are a 6.5 point favorite, but I just, I'm an AFC North guy, Steelers fan. I really hope the Commanders win. I want to continue to see Jaden Daniels play to the best of his abilities. He's really looking like a veteran quarterback, and this is his going to be his 6th game of the year, um, of his season. But I got Commanders winning. Um, Going on the road, I've seen the Ravens go on the road and beat Baltimore, so I think Commanders could do it too. And then after that game, um, Texans and Patriots, two two really good. Uh, well, Texans is a really good team. They beat the Bills. Patriots starting Drake May. This is the week of really. You see the first 5 games and you try to put stuff together to try to create a spark for your team, and that's what the Patriots are doing. Benching Jacoby Brissett and starting Drake May. But I think the Texans are going to get after him. It's in New England, but I really like what the Texans have done so far. CJ Stroud maybe not putting up the numbers he did last year, but he's doing good enough um, to push his team to wins. So that's going to be a big one. Um, then we have Steelers Raiders in Vegas. I can't go against the Steelers. They're in Vegas. Every time they play in Vegas or Oakland, wherever the Vegas Raiders are, wherever the Raiders are, um, you know, it's always a Steelers home game. Uh, my mom will be there. I hope they win for her after the Cowboys didn't. I mean, after they lose to the Cowboys last week on her birthday. But hopefully they get the job done, or we may be talking about starting Russell Wilson, even though Justin Fields has not really played bad. But it's just like I talked about, you got to light a spark, um, see, how that comes out. Russell Wilson will be active for the first time this year. He's off the injury report. Um, Hopefully we get Jalen Warren back. We really have not had a run game since our last win, the Chargers game, because of just so many injuries to the O line, to the running backs. It just we got to get something going, and I think that's really why we haven't looked good offensively the last couple weeks, other than the second half of that Colts game. But it's just hard for Arthur Smith to get plays in when there's only one receiver, kind of, and he's pouting George Pickens. That's why I think we really need Devontae Adams to get some veteran leadership in his head, because really he's like the number one guy, and I think he's just too young for that. But anyways, I think Steelers win. Um, then we have Chargers Broncos. Broncos have looked really, really good, changed their life around. That Tampa Bay win really sparked, um, their season. The Steelers, the last loss they were was to the Steelers, um, and they've become a whole different team since that loss. Bo Nix has looked totally different. He's looked really good. So, um, Chargers, coming off a bye. Um, it really just depends when James will be back. They'll have their guy back. And I think Denver, just off the changes they've had the last few weeks, is going to get that win. And then Carolina Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta going to, Carolina. No much to no need to really talk into this a lot. I got Atlanta coming off a big performance from Kirk Cousins throwing for 500 yards. It's really unheard of these days because of defensive have been really great. So I got Atlanta easily, and then the game of the game of the big game of the week of the late afternoon. Detroit at Dallas. Dallas, Dak really he didn't really look good. He did look good on the fact that the Steelers just have not really been as great defensively as they started the year, but he turned the ball over twice. Really, their two touchdowns were late game touchdowns where I feel like the Steelers just ran out of gas. Really, um, in Detroit, they're gonna try to avenge that loss that they had last year in Dallas. I really like Detroit. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff, those guys. I think I got Detroit. I won't say big, but like I mentioned a couple weeks ago, Detroit. I mean Dallas is not really a good home team. They really are more successful on the road. So I think I got Detroit winning at Dallas, and then Sunday Night Football really a doozy. Bengals Giants at MetLife. Uh, I got Bengals. They've really looked good the past couple weeks, even though they lost to the Ravens. No way they should have lost that game. Jamar Chase had almost 200 yards receiving. T. Higgins tackled in, I think, believe 2 touchdowns or a touchdown. Joe Burrow threw for 5 touchdowns. Like, it's really the defense they got to flip around. The offense, we knew they were going to get into the groove. Zach Taylor, a great play caller. So I got Bengals big. I don't really think that game will be any good. And then Sunday night or Monday night, excuse me, Bills at Jets. Like I previously mentioned, I think it's going to be a big game. Fight for AFC East, who's going to be the number 1 team right now. Um, with the Dolphins, not really being good right now, and then the Patriots being the Patriots. Um, I think the Bills win. I want to see how the Jets really play for the new coach with the new play caller. But prior to that, I've been picking them and it hasn't really gone a, a good way. So until I see the changes they've made and how successful it will be, I'm going to go against them really for now, unless they play a team I think they could beat. But I'm going to go Bills. Josh Allen struggled last week against the Texans, um, but they're always in the game because they can create turnovers. That Bills defense, so we'll see how that can go for the Jets and the Bills game. So those will be my picks for this week. Bye teams are the Chiefs, Rams, Dolphins, Vikings. 2 undefeated teams on buys. How big of a coincidence is that? That's crazy. And then 2 teams that I think really needed the buy, like I mentioned last week, some teams that needed the buy, Rams and Dolphins. They got to get guys healthy. Puka Nakua will probably be back soon. Cooper Cup, so that Matthew Stafford could, you know, they can create a great offense for themselves. Kyra Williams, he's so good. So he's been their offense the past few weeks since they've been out. Miami really just they needed a bye to really regroup, and coming off a win against the Patriots was big for them. Um, they'll see how Tua comes back and see how that can go, but we'll see. Um, I want to talk about not go into depth, but mention 2 other sports. Baseball. I'm wearing this Dodger hat. Um, Game 5 tonight. Um, Win or go home against the Padres. I hope they win. They're at home. Need the crowd to be crazy. You know, Yoshinobu Yamamoto pitching in elimination game. He's looked, you know, okay in the games he's been healthy in. He's been out. He's back. So hopefully this could be like one of the biggest wins of his career so far, his early career. Going against you, Darvish. The Dodgers really haven't, you know, took him out of games early. Shohei not really um, being successful against him. It's a icon for him and being in Japanese. So hopefully he could put that to the side and just go after his role model, um, a guy he's grew up watching. So hopefully Dodgers go get that win for LA and see the Mets in the NLCS. So I love that matchup. Um, Mets or whatever franchise. But I think the Dodgers, if they go win tonight, they'll take out, I think, their biggest test. And the Mets are a feisty team because, they're not supposed to be here. They have a big payroll, but, you know, Dodgers, I think, will have the upper hand in that matchup. Anyways, that's the one sport. And then, kicking off the WNBA finals. Last night was game one. Minnesota win. A game that I think they should have lost. Liberty was up early, big. Brianna Stewart misses, the free throw to, in the game where she went one of two, so it went to overtime, and Minnesota shut that down and won the game. So yeah, really, that's going to be a good matchup. Best of five. New York down 1-0, Minnesota up 1-0. So we'll see. Um, yeah, that's like I said, I wasn't going to go in depth, but something I wanted to mention. So yeah, big weekend of sports. NFL, college football, MLB, WNBA. Um, so yeah, I'm happy that you guys, tune in every week to hear me talk about sports, hear me talk about football, really. But I'm going to continue to dab in a little bit of every sport, really. Hopefully that I watch. Something I can't get into is hockey, only because I really don't know much about it. Um, but the sports I do know, I love talking about it, and I hope you guys love to hear it. Um, but this will conclude this week's episode of Life in Sports Spotlight with Cameron Knox, and hopefully you guys continue to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next weekend to recap all this and talk about the next week in sports. See you guys.